Cheryl Erickson, and I'm the Indigenous focused ECE instructor with Louis Riel Vocational College. Today in Child and Family Diversity, we will be looking at Chapter 3 and supporting families with autonomy seeking youngsters. But before we get started, I just want to remind you to please read your Chapter 3, as this video is not a replacement for your daily chapter readings. So when we look at supporting toddlers who are seeking autonomy, we're looking at a baby who is now 2 years of age and is their central task in life, I guess, would be to be independent. And so what we want for children is to become independent. So autonomy meaning independence. They're separating more from their parents. They're doing things on their own, and they're becoming more of a little individual. So they really come into their own personality and their own being once they reach that age of 2. And so some of the signs that we look at as far as developing autonomy, often we hear that toddler express the word no. And so why do they typically express the word no is because they hear the word no and they repeat the word no. And why do they hear the word no is because once they start coming into their own and exploring their environment, they're always touching and they're busy. They're exploring their environment and often getting into a little bit of trouble along the way. So we see that exploration and that's how they learn. Really getting into more independence and wanting to do things for themselves, eating themselves. You see me do, that common me do phrase because they want to do it theirself, as well as a sense of possession. So then everything tends to become mine. And so that's a really a strong time for that sense of possession around age 2, where they want everything and they don't understand. That concept of sharing, it hasn't come yet. So that negativity, the no, sometimes they say no when they mean yes. So if you say, would you like some crackers, they just get into that habit. It's contrary about everything. They might say no, but then come back and have some anyways. So we often see that with toddlers. It's typical toddler behavior. They start to be a little bit more independent and they're separating more from the parent. They're wanting to do more on their own. So if a toddler goes to the park with their mom, they're more apt to run away and explore. There's just so many things in that environment that they want to touch and see. And again, that's how they're learning. They're picking things up, they're looking at it, they're dropping it, it makes a sound, it could break. It's all a part of that learning process. And no, again, is a big word when they're 2. That exploration in their environment, it starts in infancy. Really, it starts once that infant starts to sit up and move around. Once they start to move around their environment, that exploration starts. But now that they're able to walk and run, and they have a little bit more independence, they're able to explore even more. And so that exploration, when it does start, know that it is something that comes out of that formation of trust and attachment. So that's a good attachment. You can see a good attachment rather when a child is able to explore their environment a little bit more freely. So children, it increases as children move towards autonomy, that exploration. Children learn that they are capable individuals through that exploration, and especially seeking that satisfaction of doing things for themselves. So you'll see a toddler trying to put their shoes on by themselves, and there's a 50-50 chance that they'll get them on the right feet. But at that point, they don't care. It's just the success in being able to do that task. Putting them on the right feet will come later. We see that independence versus interdependence when we look at that more of a parenting style. And us as parents, do we want our child to be independent, or do we want them to be still dependent a bit on us working with them to accomplish tasks, which is that interdependence. So we see kind of two major tasks when it comes to this happening. So newborn babies are born with two major tasks. First being to become those independent little people, or second, to establish connections with others. And so the parent's job essentially is to help their child meet these tasks. If we're focusing on independence, what do we want to see for our child? So we want them to be an individual. We want them to, all children are unique and special, so we want to see that our child is independent, unique, and special. We want them to have some drive, some self-determination, and be self-reliant. So essentially, those skills are helping that child know how to take care of themselves, meet their needs, and later in life be successful. So that's what we want for our children as they grow and develop. Interdependence for families who, want their child to be mutually dependent. Their child is still part of that group, and this could be more of a cultural, how you raise your child is going to be within your cultural values as well. Your child is learning to establish but still keep those connections. They learn to accept help still graciously as well, and they learn to help others. So, that is going to be your choice as far as parenting styles, and you're also going to see children that come into your care being raised with different types of values as well. Self-help skills for toddlers are very important. Self-help skills is a good sign of growing to be independent. And so we want children to learn how to do things on their own, to give them choices where we can give choices. So for example, you can ask a toddler what color of a bib they want. That's a choice. You want a red or a yellow. What kind of fruit you want for your snack. Do you want oranges or apples? But there's certain choices you can't give them. A choice can't be whether you eat or not, or what time you have your nap. So there's still choices that we have to make for our children that are for their overall health and wellness. So where we can give them choices, and we still want them to be able to make decisions where they can and still explore their environment freely. So some other self-help choices we can give them too is feeding. So we can offer them the spoon to feed themselves during meal times, or cut things up into the smaller pieces, those finger foods where they can feed themselves. Move from the bottle to a cup where they can independently take sips out of their cup. As well as those, those toilet training. Know that a huge sign of independence and autonomy is that a child has develops some regulation over their body and is able to enter that process of toilet training. So that's a big step for a toddler. You do have a lot of issues of power and control with a toddler. They can be, power is something that comes with independence. They have control over their body, and they want to, maintain that control all their time at all times. And so, with power and control, you do hear that word "no" a lot more. And so some typical behaviors, not only with the no, is independently exploring their environment. And we move from, that infant to child-proofing your house almost, because there's things that you want to make sure that a child can't have access to once they're exploring their environment, because it could be a potential hazard or threat to their health. So like locking up laundry soaps and different types of chemicals, because they don't understand that that's something that they can't touch, and we'll get into that because that's the stage of development they're in. They want to explore, they want to test limits. So we do see that, learning those self-help skills and wanting to dress themselves and taking over things like toothbrushing and eating, and that gaining a sense of possession is at its peak as well with the mine and not wanting to let things go. And sharing is a difficult thing for a toddler. So what kinds of things can we do as ECEs in our environment to facilitate that independence, power and control for these little people that are wanting to learn and explore their environment? We want to look at how we physically set up our environment to make sure that it's safe, and that there's a lot of age-appropriate materials and toys for the toddlers to freely explore. If we're setting up that environment to be age-appropriate for a toddler, it's going to eliminate a lot of the negative and the no's that come out of that. And that greatly reducing that is more positive for that child and for their self-esteem. Where we can encourage those self-help skills as well. So, really designing your program, allowing for as much independence. So once you get into that toilet training, to have those child-sized toilets available so that a child can independently go into the bathroom and use the facilities, and teaching them hand washing, have soap and towel and water ready available for that process, as well as your meals. Design your menu around foods that are a lot more finger foods for the children to eat on their own, or things that are easy for them to manage on their own as far as feeding themselves. Give choices where you can. Again, I gave some examples about the fruit and the bibs earlier. So those are very positive ways to still allow a toddler to be independent, and knowing, what choices aren't appropriate is important. Another choice that I use with my toddlers is around diaper changing. I would give them a choice if they wanted to be next. So do you want to finish playing with this puzzle, or wait till after I change your friend Johnny, for example? So ultimately, they will have their diaper changed. It's either now or after the next child. So it's still, again, giving them opportunities to choose whether they want it now or later is really important. And you're still going to have rules and set limits within your environment too, because those teachable moments are important for those toddlers. They need to know that there are rules and limits, because those rules and limits do keep them safe and set them up for success as they get older. So when we think about toddlers, temper tantrums are often a big part of 2-year-olds, because they, in those situations where it's mine, not everything can be yours. So teachable moments can come out of that when they're put into positions where they have to share or something doesn't go their way. So we want to, ensure that we are teaching them coping skills. We don't want to give them more than they can handle as well. So sometimes it's just giving them time to gain control over their bodies and just allowing them to experience those emotions, because experiencing those emotions gives us an opportunity to label, to teach them about emotions, as well as they're going to start to learn to self-regulate those emotions. So other types of things that we have to consider as well as, separation anxiety and attachments are still issues, lifelong issues, and are still very big as far as the toddler years. And so we really want to ensure, especially when children are coming into care with us, that those transitions are key. And when parents do leave the center, that they tell the child that they're leaving. Long are gone the days where parents just disappear. That can be very, very stressful. It's important to say we're leaving and we're going to be back at lunch, or we're going to be back after nap, so the child has something concrete to relate with. If a parent just disappears, it's almost traumatic for that child. They don't understand what's happened to the parent, where they've gone, and they have a lot of anxiety and fear. So really important to say your goodbyes and set up a routine. If you say goodbye, I love you, or hug your child is really important for them. And so transition, have, maybe when the parent first leaves that child in the center with the staff, that it be a small period of time between 45 minutes and an hour. And then increase that time frame. And then the child can relate. Mom and dad said goodbye, they left, and it wasn't a long period of time till they got back. And there's other issues as well around separation that can be traumatic as well. So things like hospital stays, where it's either a parent or a child having to stay. There is, some separation. So, that's where it's really important, where there's another attachment figure as well, whether they're attached to dad or grandma or grandma, so that there is a strong comfort figure there for them that they're attached to. And then that goes again when you think about military families, and if there is a separation because a parent goes on leave. That can be stressful if it's only, that child is only attached to, one individual. So we want the child to have many healthy attachments that are going to work to support situations where there could be a leave or death in a situation that could be very traumatic. So we want to really ensure whatever situation that might come into play, that there are supports in place to make that separation healthy, that there are good, strong attachments, what that plan is to make it a really positive experience, that it's not detrimental to that child and will be a lifelong impact for them. So again, just to kind of reiterate, those transitions into daycare are really going to be key for that child's success. So we want to make sure that there are that the center, wherever you're working at, has a really good enrollment policy as far as how often a child comes to transition in. Those transitions should not only be just the child being in the environment, but supports the family as well, so that the parent can come in and be in the environment and maybe initiate play, be there to support the child, and then slowly that parent leave the center and have the child interact with the staff and the other children in the environment. as well. So really, making that transition successful is going to work to benefit not only the child, but the parents in their comfort level. If they're feeling good about the child entering the care, they're going to portray a lot of positive, and that's going to be something the child picks up on. If it's scary, they may exhibit those kinds of feelings, and that child's going to be a little bit on edge. So we want it to be positive. We want to acknowledge and accept everybody's feelings once these transitions are happening, and label those feelings. Address those feelings and offer comfort and support where you can, because those feelings are really important and they're really natural. And for the child, again, leads to positive coping skills and self-regulation. And we really want our children and our families to be successful as they're entering care. So that does conclude Chapter 3 of Child and Family Diversity. Please do see your instructor if you have any questions regarding Chapter 3. Also, just to check in to ensure you haven't missed any handouts or assignments relating to Chapter 3.